So the next section in this last unit, what we're going to do, since we introduced the natural numbers last time and we were dealing with them and finding prime factorizations, we're going to just take a little detour right here to talk about the operations with our natural numbers. Actually, this section applies to any numbers, but right now we're just assuming all the only numbers we're working with are natural numbers because that was how we started. So for instance, we come upon this idea of the order of operations. There has to be some order of importance of our operations when we do the natural numbers. So for instance, here's this example. And if I ask you, if you just arrived on Earth a few days ago, and I said, let's do this, well, there's actually two ways you could do this process. Right? You could say, okay, I'm just going to do the operations as I see them. And I could say, okay, I could say 3 plus 7. 3 plus 7 is 10. And then I have 10 times 5, and 10 times 5 is 50. And so that's one potential answer you could get. Or what you could do is you could say, oh, well, hang on. Maybe, I don't know, no one's told me because I just arrived at Earth the other day. Maybe that's not the order I go. And so we could say, okay, what happens if I do the 7 times 5 first? So then I get 3 plus, and 7 times 5 is 35. So 3 plus 35 is 38. So you can see we get two completely different answers. And so what we're going to address and what the order of operations deals with, again, probably something you've seen, is which of these is correct. We can't go around having two ways to get values and then end up with different results. And so we have what's called the order of operations to determine this. The order of operations define an importance. There is a basis to the order of operations. It wasn't like somebody just sat around and said, hey, let's do this. It really just has its basis in what the different operations mean. For instance, multiplication is repeated addition, so that's why you do multiplication first. So anyway, but I'm getting ahead of myself just out of excitement. So the order of operations goes like this. The first thing is parentheses. So you're grouping symbols. Your grouping symbols attract your attention, so you always start any problem by looking at the parentheses. Now, when you look at the parentheses, if there's more than one thing inside of it, then you revert to what comes next. So the second thing is anything with exponents. That becomes object number 2 that you work on. The next thing, now I know most of you in some class, your teacher told you about Aunt Sally. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. The reason I don't like that is Aunt Sally's a little bit of a deceiver, okay? Because that kind of leads you to believe that multiplication comes before division, okay, my dear, and then Aunt Sally, addition before subtraction. So that's nice to remember what the operations are, but in reality, multiplication and division are the same operation. Division is just multiplying by a reciprocal. And so if you have multiplication and division, they're actually the same level of the order of operations. And so then you might say, hey, well, Perkster, how do I know which one comes first? Well, that's a great question. And what you do is just like reading a sentence, you go left to right. So whatever you come to first. So if division comes first, as you're going left to right, you do the division first. Okay, order of operations. And then lastly, the same thing's true for adding and subtracting. Again, adding and subtracting are the same operation. They are the same level of importance. If you have more than one of them and a problem, then again, you go from the left part of the problem over to the right, just like you're reading a sentence left to right. So what that means is if we go back up to example 1, then if I was to do the problem this way and do 3 plus 7 is 10, I'm violating the order of operations. I have now made addition more important in the hierarchy. So that's why the answer 50 is wrong here. Okay, that would not be the proper answer because multiplication comes first. Multiplication is repeated addition. So you do that first. and then you mop up the rest of it. And so that's why the 3 plus 35 equals 38 is the appropriate answer. So all we're going to do for the rest of our time in this section is we're just going to practice so that order of operations, if you're not already familiar with it, just becomes kind of second nature to you. So what I'm just going to have you do is I'm going to give you 30 to 90 seconds, depending on how complicated the problem is. I want you to do your best on each of these. Remember, I've said this all semester. If you make a mistake, don't beat yourself up or shame yourself. It is an opportunity to learn. Mistakes are natural and normal, and they give us opportunity to learn. So do exercise 1. Simplify -8 plus 24 divided by 6. All right, so on this problem, -8 plus 24 divided by 6, there are two operations. Which one am I going to do first? Yep, the division comes first. That is step 3 on our hierarchy that we have right above. So the 24 divided by 6. Now, when I do a problem, you're going to notice I like to just do one thing at a time. I like to then rewrite the problem. I find with students, most mistakes in order of operations problems do not come from not knowing the order of operations. It comes from trying to consolidate too many things into one step. I know we're in a hurry. We want to be done with the problem, the semester, everything. So what I'm just going to do is take my time. So this is -8 plus 24 divided by 6. Your calculator tells you that's 4. And then -8 plus 4 when I finish is -4. And that is what I get when I do that problem. Anybody get something different than -4? We doing all right so far on that nice, relaxing problem? All right, well, we're going to step it up a notch. Okay, so exercise 2. I want you to give that one a try. Make your best effort. Remember, you get lots of attempts here to figure it out. All right, so looking at this problem, 6 squared minus 24 divided by 2 squared times 3 plus 1. Going down my list of the order of operations, just use it as a checklist. What's the first thing that we have to do? Exponents. There's no parentheses on this problem, so I skipped step 1, and step 2 says do any exponents. So I'm going to go through and do that. Let me know if you have any issues. So 6 squared, 6 times 6 is 36. Minus 24 divided by 2 squared, 2 times 2 is 4, times 3 plus 1. Okay, so that's what happens when I just go and do the exponents. Excellent. We good so far? Excellent. Now what comes next on the order of operations? Any multiplying and dividing, right? They are equal. So as I go left to right, those of you who said it, I heard a few of you say it, division's going to come next. And the reason you said that, I'm assuming, is because now when we go left to right, the first thing we hit is this -24 divided by 4. So we'll do that. I'm just going to do one thing at a time. So I have 36, and then -24 divided by 4 is a -6 or a -6. Then I've got times 3 plus 1. I'm not done with step 3 on the order of operations. I still have some multiplication and division there to resolve. So I'm going to do the next thing, which is the -6 times 3. So I have 36. -6 times 3 is -18 plus 1. And now adding and subtracting left to right. So the first thing I hit is 36 minus 18, and my calculator tells me that's 18. And then 18 plus 1 is equal to 19. Did anyone go astray there? Any mistakes you don't see what's going on? Okay, the next two problems are going to be very simple problems, but they're to illustrate a very important point as you're going through your order of operations problems. So exercise 3, give your best attempt on how to resolve -7 in parentheses and then squared. Okay, so if you're going down the list of the order of operations, you might say, oh, hey, I got a parenthesis here, but this parenthesis is an example of parentheses that are just there to isolate a negative number. There's nothing in that parenthesis to do. There's no operation. It's just a -7 sitting there chilling. Okay, so all that we have here is an exponent. Now, here's what I want to illustrate between this problem and the next problem. What am I squaring on this particular problem? Yeah, a square, any exponent always refers to what's right below it. And what's right below this 2 is the parentheses. So you don't have to write this out, but I'm just doing this for your notes in case there's any confusion. What this is saying is I am squaring the -7 and the -7, okay? I'm multiplying it times itself. And so a negative times a negative, -7 times -7 is +49. Tracking with me on that one? We okay with that? All right, well, then here's the next one. What happens in exercise 4? And I want you to try this problem as a hypothesis. Maybe you've seen it before, you know exactly what to expect. What happens now when I don't have the parentheses on the problem? Does it affect the value? Yes or no? Well, let's see. Go ahead and try it. All right, so on this problem right here, what is the exponent applying to, would you say? Yeah, it's applying just to the 7. There's no parentheses, so the exponent is applying just to the 7. What we have here, even though it doesn't look like it, this is an order of operations problem. Okay. The first step in order of operations is parentheses. We don't have any parentheses here. Step 2 is exponents. And so the exponent is just applying to the 7. So what I have here written out is I have a negative times 7 times 7 when I write it all out. And so the 7 times 7, that's 49. And then that negative just makes it a -49. So when the negative is outside, you don't worry about it with the exponent. Okay, it's only when the negative is in the parentheses that it is part of what you're doing with the exponent. So that becomes significant in our next problem, exercise 5. Simplify that. You've got -6 in parentheses squared. That's like the problem, the bottom of the previous page. And then -5 times 7 squared. And then there's no operation symbol between the 5 minus 7 squared and the -3. And just to remind you, when there's no operation symbol between those, you're going to multiply. Okay, that's the implied operation. So give that a try, see how you do. All right, so clue me in. Where am I going to start on this problem right here? You're going to be right the first time. Parentheses, yeah, for the first problem that we've had, we've got some parentheses that have something to do inside. So I'm going to start with this right here. I understand on this problem you could do more than one thing at once, and it's not going to be too confusing. But again, I'm going to stick with my process since that is going to help us be nice and thorough here. So what I've got is I've got -6, and I'm squaring it, and then minus, and then 5 minus 7 turns out to be -2. I'm going to keep that in parentheses just because I want to make sure that I square the right thing. Because remember that square there, this square right here is applying to whatever's in the parentheses. So that's why I keep them as a way to isolate my -2. And then I have that -3 as the next thing. We good so far? All right, so we've done the parentheses. So then what would you tell me I'm going to do next? Yep, you're exactly right, 100%. So -6 squared, we see that the negative is inside the parentheses. So that's -6 times -6. So positive 36 minus, and then -2 squared, again, same thing. That's -2 times -2. So that's positive 4. And then I have that -3 outside. Any questions, comments, or concerns on this one? All right, so then next, I'm going to go the next level order of operations. That's multiplying and dividing. So I have 36, and then I have a -4 times a -3. That is a plus 12. And then 36 plus 12, that is going to give me 48 as my answer. Yeah. So the -2 starts if I have 5 of something and then I take 7 away, I'm now at -2. If you think about the number line, so when you learned this at some point in the past, you might have had a teacher that said, "Hey, if you're at 5 and you're going to subtract 7, when you go back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, when you count, that's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, -1, -2." So that's kind of the pictorial way to remember that. When I teach the arithmetic class here, what I tell students is when you're doing subtraction like that, what you want to do, so 5 minus 7, what you want to do is add the opposite. That becomes your normal way to think about this. So instead of -7, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a -7. And then there's rules for addition. And if you need those, hey, that's why we're going through this in this class, because a lot of you are taking this class in conjunction with maybe taking statistics as your next class to fulfill your math thing. So being able to do operations fairly quickly and accurately is going to be good. So if you need more practice on something like subtraction, just send me an email. I got a video, I got a couple worksheets, I can send you some extra practice. Also, we can find it in my math lab. There's places you can go in there where you can get extra practice on certain things. Okay, so great question. I appreciate you asking it. All right, exercise 6 is the next one. We got 2 more problems. So if you have any questions about the order of operations, we are getting to the finish line. All right, so I'm just going to work through this problem. If I do anything different than you did and you don't understand why, that is a great opportunity for a question. There's no parentheses on this problem, so exponents are the order of the day. So 7 squared, 7 times 7 is 49, minus 48 divided by 4 squared. 4 times 4 is 16, times 5 plus 2. So I took care of both exponents since they were far away from each other. They didn't affect each other. So there's the first thing. So far, so good? All right. Multiplication and division. So I'm going to go left to right. So when I do that, the first thing I hit is the negative 48 divided by 16. And so when you pop that into your calculator, negative 48 divided by 16 is negative 3 times 5 plus 2. Again, I'm just doing one thing at a time to so that I don't accidentally confuse myself. So I did the division. I've got multiplication, so that's negative 3 times 5. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. 49 minus 15 is going to be 34. And then 34 plus 2 is equal to 36. There we go. There's my result. If you got a question, ask it. If not, we're going to end our order of operations presentation here with exercise 7. So the reason I gave this problem is in addition to having parentheses, this problem also has more than one set of parentheses. So what to do when I've got these braces. Now, don't be confused by the different shapes. The only reason different shapes are used is so that you know which ones go together. It makes it easier to see. But looking at this, I've got the 5 square inside the brackets. I've got 5 squared divided by, and then I've got these parentheses 7 minus 12. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to start with the parentheses that are closest together. Okay, and I'm going to work my way out on the parentheses step. So I'm not going to worry about anything else. I've got 30 divided by, I've got a square bracket right there. And then I'm going to have 5 squared divided by, and then 7 minus 12. Again, you can use your calculator, you can use the number line, you can use add the opposite. But when you have 7 and then you take away 12, that's going to be negative 5. I'm leaving that in parentheses again, just to make sure that I isolate that negative and the 5 so everybody knows they go together. Okay, but I've done the operation, so that's good. So I'm not done with the parentheses step because I still have parentheses. I've got the squared off parentheses, the brackets. So I've got 30 divided by, now inside the brackets, I've got a choice. I've got 5 squared, and then I've got divided by negative 5. So I've got to apply the order of operations. The 5 squared is 25. The exponent's going to come first. And then to finish off the squared off parentheses, I'm going to do the 25 divided by negative 5. So that's 30 divided by 25 divided by negative 5. A positive divided by a negative is going to be a negative 5 again. And then minus negative 9. Order of operations. We've done the parentheses. There's no exponents to do. So third step is any multiplying and dividing. And I've got division. So 30 divided by negative 5, that's negative 6. And then minus negative 9. Again, if you remember your subtraction and you add the opposite, that's wonderful. You can also say, hey, a negative times a negative, that's going to give me a positive. So what I have here is really -6 plus 9. Okay, a negative times a negative makes a positive. You find the more arithmetic you do, a subtraction sign and a negative kind of are interchangeable as far as process goes. Okay, so if you're wondering why I can do that. And then -6 plus 9 is +3. And that is my final result to that problem.